for Thanksgiving, actually, I made an apple pie, and it was delicious. But my brother made he made a gluten-free apple pie using this special, like, cup-to-cup. It's made by the guy at the French Laundry, which is a pretty big restaurant here in California. In the news for maybe not the greatest reasons. But, so, so I wouldn't say it was a contest, because, he's making something different. He's making gluten-free. I'm making with gluten. But my pie was better. Just say. No contest. Zero contest. But as I said, I do have the partial advantage of actually, using gluten, using actual flour, and, really the key ingredient, and the thing that makes my pie so much more brilliant than my brother's pie is the addition of butter into the apple filling. Adds a lot of moisture, adds some flavor, keeps the apples from going moist, and to be honest, let's be honest, it's the secret for cooking. Thing tastes bad, add butter. Thing tastes bad, add even more butter. Thing still tastes bad. Maybe can reconsider actually if it's worth even eating. But like you can cover a lot of cooking sins with butter and salt. On the other hand, when you watch professional kitchens cooking their food, you're like, I regret my life decisions now. I have eaten more butter than I thought could physically fit in a steak. Because they do that. They put butter on your steak. And I feel like that shouldn't be a super secret thing, because now that cooking shows are so much of a bigger thing, like people just watch cooking shows and they're like, oh yeah, you put butter on your steak. But like, when I saw a video of that happening, my mind was blown. Because we never did that at home. I was just like, oh yeah, when you cook a steak, you just put it on a grill and watch it cook, and then you eat it. And that's how steaks are made. What's this other things that you talk about, like salt and pepper? Okay, I should even mention that. Like, my family doesn't even put, like, God, that sounds bad. But, like, my family isn't, like, at least, so my dad always did the steaks, and he always had the opinion, if you cook a steak, right? If you cook food in general, you should always let the person eating it determine how much salt they want on their steak. So this means, in most recipe books, they would recommend that you cover the steak in like olive oil, salt, and pepper. But he just cooked the steak, and without any of that fancy stuff, And if it was good, it was, and that's just the steak I grew up with. That was steak. I just put salt on my steak. And now when I watch these cooking shows, they're like, you always have to pre-season your food before you cook it. Otherwise, it doesn't penetrate in. If you have the surface salt, you just get that bite of saltiness, and you don't get all the flavor capacity into it. And I guess that was true. Because now I salt my food. I try and like pre-season my food, kind of let it soak in. And yeah, now it tastes better. Yeah, what can you say? Home cooking, not necessarily the best cooking. Definitely not. So, yeah, that was like one of the funnest things I've ever done is just realizing how bad. Okay, I can't say that. I grew up eating my mom's cooking and whatever. So, I have deep emotional attachments to that style of cooking and whatever. But now that I look back on it, my mom can be not that good of a cook. She frequently burns things because she's too lazy to make sure to like stir things, actually, basically. She makes a lot of stir fries, and point about the stir fries is that you stir it, like you're constantly like tossing the wok or something like that, yeah, she'll be like, oh, it's early on, I don't have to do anything. And then she'll walk off and she'll do something else. And then by the time she comes back, the vegetables are burned. And and she'll be like, oh, I just like having that level of flavor development. And I can't tell at this point, is it just a cover or does she actually like burnt food? Because at this point it could be true either way. Either way. Yeah, she's a great chef. What can I say? Shouldn't say that. As I said, she's good at other things. She's actually a pretty competent baker. You know, I learned how to make cream puffs from her. You know, those little not puff pastry, choux pastry. Learned that from her. Learned how to make popovers from her, or Yorkshire puddings, whichever term you prefer. They're the same thing. I learned how to make that from her. You know, so she's a very competent baker. But she's just not the greatest at things that require constant care. Like, when I was over for Thanksgiving too, I made some toffee, which requires pretty continuous stirring. I'd say like a medium heat or whatever, but she wanted to be done in like 10 minutes. So, when you do that, the toffee, at least with the toffee recipe I have, it tends to be a little bit more watery. It tends to ooze kind of a little bit, which is not the greatest thing in the world. And it happens because if you don't let it cook down, if you don't let it cook out some of the water and so on, because you're actually only there really for like the butter solids, like the solid fats and whatever, kind of need to cook it down or something like that, to help it out. And yeah, if you don't let that happen, it just kind of oozes out as it hardens, and it's still edible, still very tasty, but it doesn't quite have, I would say, the same type of consistency that I would like in a toffee. Like, toffee should be very, you know, snap, and then you can kind of crunch on it for a little bit before it sticks to your teeth. This one kind of just snaps and then sticks to your teeth. It's a little bit more caramelly. And that's not my favorite thing in the world. One of the reasons I do like toffee is that it doesn't stick to my teeth as much. So, but you know, still great, still tasty, still eating it. So, it's all good in this neighborhood. Da-da-da-da. So, you know, one of the things I learned when I was making hats is that I have an unusually small head, and I still don't know what the hell to think about that. Like, I guess that's not a bad thing. It's not a great thing. That means I have an unusually small brain, too. Not that it matters. Brain size is not correlated with intelligence. So I hope. Yeah, so, oh god, there's a straight line in this misshapen circle. Yeah, anyways, so what I'm doing is, as I said,